Speaker, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this House, Mr. Steve Backer, husband of the deceased, Nigel and Natasha, the children of Debbie, friends, families, and colleagues of hers. Today, I stand here on behalf of the APNU and the mover of this motion to pay tribute to one of Guyana's icons, Ms. Deborah Jan Backer, nee Osman, who has left a missing link in the Parliament of Guyana. Deborah's life spanned the period of April 14, 1959 to March 2014. This young woman, who only enjoyed 55 years of life, was no ordinary woman, for she adequately filled the void of a good wife, a caring mother, a soldier for justice, a champion for women's rights, and a true patriot. Debbie was one who was loved not only by her family and friends, but by her colleague parliamentarians and the populace at large. Looking at the life she lived in and out of Parliament, one can only conclude that she was no ordinary woman. She was smart, fearless, charismatic, affable, deliberate, tactful, strategic, opinionated, logical, and humorous. Debbie was a lawyer by profession, but served in several other organizations, such as the Lions Club, the Women's Millennium Caucus, counselor in the city of Georgetown, the People's National Congress Reform, where she served in one of the high positions as the vice chairperson of the party, and then entered the National Assembly in 1997. I must admit, and I'm sure that you will all agree, that Debbie took her parliamentary work very seriously. As a matter of fact, not only Parliament, but in her party's responsibility, she never wavered. She dutifully carried out her responsibilities without fear and favor. Deborah Backer was always prepared in Parliament. I do not recall her ever found wanting. She always did her research. She was quick on her feet for responses, and she never missed an opportunity to represent the people of Guyana. Debbie was a positive link in the APNU, as she guided us in a number of ways. During her parliamentary life, Debbie served on 10 important parliamentary committees, some of which were the Committee of Privileges, the Committee on Appointments, Sectoral Committee on Foreign Relations, the Parliamentary Management Committee, the Anti-Money Laundering Committee, just to mention a few. Her representation for the people of Guyana in all these committees illustrated her commitment for her country and wanting the best for her people. As a frontbencher of the APNU, she was never silent, for she was always vocal and ready. She tabled 7 motions and bills in Parliament. I said earlier that she was always quick on her feet. And I must remind this assembly that nothing could have gone down easily without a challenge from Debbie. She was always quick to refer the Speaker or the Assembly to the standing orders. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose. But her interventions were always timely, relevant, sometimes humorous, but she never lost focus. Mr. Speaker, as a contributor to parliamentary debates, Debbie participated in almost 87 important subjects for debate, some of which were budget debates, constitutional amendment bills, Child Care and Protection Agency bill, Prevention of Crimes bill, among others. Mr. Speaker, you will agree with me that Debbie's contribution was in no mean way, for she was deliberate and pointed. Deborah Bakker, in her life at Parliament, was the Shadow Minister of Home Affairs, and more recently in the 10th Parliament, the Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. No doubt, Honorable Minister Clement Rohi would not miss the fact that she always kept him on his toes. Mr. Speaker, in the 10th Parliament of Guyana, Deborah Bakker was elected to the position of Deputy Speaker. Here, she served with distinction until she fell ill and later succumbed. I recall whenever the Speaker had to be absent and Debbie had to take the chair to preside, many in the government side will say, we down here will be quiet. There will be no heckling. A good way to keep her silent. This assembly will no doubt recall the challenges she posed for many of the government MPs, particularly Honorable Clement Rohi. You will recall her many illustrations in the assembly, such as making and displaying a dunce cap, like resting her miniature dolphin in front of her, like offering a box of cornflakes to her opponents, and not forgetting using appropriate language to settle Honorable Member Ali Kumar. Mr. Speaker, those illustrations may seem to be humorous, actions had a purpose and were meant to send a message which she transferred fearlessly. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, Deborah Jan Backer has left us physically, but she has left a lot of lessons for us. She has also made her name and put her stamp as a parliamentarian. She has touched the lives of many. The APNU, sir, is saddened by her departure. But we take comfort in the contributions she has made during her lifetime. And so, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the leader of the opposition and leader of the PNCR, and indeed the Parliament of Guyana, permit me to convey our deepest condolences to Steve, her husband, Nigel and Natasha, her children, Kim and Brian, her stepchildren, her sisters, her friends, and indeed by everyone whose lives she touched. Deborah has gone, but not forgotten. May her soul rest in peace and rise in glory. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now invite the Honourable Attorney General.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Speaker, honourable members, Mr. Backer, and the children of Mrs. Backer, the relatives and friends of Deborah who are gathered here. I see my colleague Paul Smith, President of the Bar Association, and other members of the profession who are here. I rise on behalf of the government of Guyana to pay tribute to Ms. Deborah Backer. Deborah, as we all know, was a lawyer, and I often said was possessed of a personality that had many sides. My relationship with her preceded my entry and her entry into the National Assembly. As a lawyer, she was a person who was radically different from the personality I met in the National Assembly. The cases which she did in court were mostly family-related matters, and a majority of them ended by way of amicable resolution. She was also one of the first mediators to be appointed under a pilot mediation and conciliation project launched in Guyana. And one saw a conciliatory side of her demonstrated and activated in that arena. So much so, as I pointed out at another occasion, I always ask the coordinator of the mediation program to appoint Ms. Deborah Backer as my mediator of choice. Lawyers under the program are required to submit the names of the persons they would like to act as mediator in any matter chosen for mediation. And my standard operator in that regard was Ms. Deborah Baca. I recall the last case which we did, it was a case from Quarantine. Mr. Michael Somersall was the lawyer representing the other side. And as usual, the mediator knew who my choice would have been and nominated on my behalf Ms. Deborah Baca. And Mr. Michael Somersall, attorney at law, obviously had no objections with that. So when my client met me as we were going to the mediation center, when we entered, Ms. Baca was sitting there and Mr. Somersall was there. So my client asked me, who is the mediator? And I said, I choose Ms. Deborah Baca. My client quietly pulled me outside and said to me in her characteristic language, and that PhD did you choose? And I assured her that she should not worry. Ms. Baca, as a mediator, has proven to me to have a track record that other mediators can emulate. And indeed, that matter, which was a complicated matter, involving several pieces of property, both movable and immovable, was finally brought to an end. That was one side of the personality of Deborah Baca. The other side of the personality is what the Honorable Member Amna Ali spoke about in the National Assembly. A very animated, a very aggressive, a very passionate dissenter of whatever cause she's advocating. Heckling was obviously one of her forte, and many members on this side were the subject of her commentary. I don't think they enjoyed it, quite frankly. And then, in a split moment, Ms. Baca, if asked to ascend the chair, we would see once again a different side of Deborah. And that is the type of personality that she had. Myself and her would have several clashes. She was seated right across me, so we were in hearing or earshot of each other. So many personal exchanges we used to have. I remember one budget presentation, Your Honor had to intervene because Ms. Baca took great objection to something I said. And then when we adjourned or recessed in the halls of the Parliament, especially later in the evenings, Ms. Baca and I would share a quiet cigarette together. Not very many people know that. So that is the type of character and personality that Deborah Baca was possessed of. And certainly, in terms of her presentation, her presentation was well-founded in substance. She was, as I said, a very passionate, animated, articulate debater in relation to what she spoke about. And I have no doubt that she has made a contribution to the National Assembly, and she would have inspired many young parliamentarians, especially on the opposition benches, in terms of the way they present themselves now, even in the conduct of their debates, and those who are aspiring to be in this House. Speaking On behalf of the government, we want to recognize her contribution as an honorable member of this House for over a decade, and we want to recognize her contribution to politics. I want to assure her husband and children, one of whom is a lawyer, and her sisters and other relatives, that Deborah would be missed in this National Assembly. Her life indeed was a short one. She had a lot more energy and life in her. Unfortunately, the Creator had other plans for her. But I can tell you that we in the National Assembly will miss her. And I want to take this opportunity once again. I know many members of the government have done this, but I want to take this opportunity once again on behalf of His Excellency, the President, and the government of Guyana. We want to convey to you our deepest sympathy and condolences at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General. I now invite Mr. Cameron Rambutan.
Kathy Hughes will be speaking on our behalf.
Mrs. Hughes, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, members of this honorable House, it is right for this honorable House to take time to express its profound sympathy to the family of our former Deputy Speaker, Deborah Backer. And I rise also to extend a message of condolence to her family on behalf of the Alliance for Change. There's not been a session in this House since our dear friend Debbie's passing. And we have missed her feisty yet well-researched presentations, her superior wit and humor that brought relief and laughter at the right time in many a difficult and controversial discussion, and her great strength of character. As a parliamentarian, Debbie was an avid reader and researcher, and was an exceptional debater who made an invaluable contribution to the discussion of national issues in our parliament and to the country. Much of this was probably as a result of her successful legal career that had as its foundation the dispensation of justice based on fairness and equality, especially for the most vulnerable in our society. And in this vein, Debbie brought several important motions to this House. But what was even more special was her commitment to first attempt to seek consensus on difficult issues, to negotiate in the hope that we could arrive at some common position that would benefit all the people of Guyana. This I saw when she brought to this House her motion on interpersonal violence. Most of all, Debbie had an enviable ability to be respectful to all in moments of great hostility and argument, and could often be seen a few minutes later laughing with others on the other side of this House, and the divide, which unfortunately we see often in here. As a new member of Parliament, I miss Debbie not sitting in front of me, and the time she took to explain the decisions, the discussions, and the strategies, and the events unfolding in this House. But that's not all. Debbie was a strong, intelligent woman, a true role model, who at one time could be fiercely opposing any perceived injustice, and at another time, quietly consoling a friend battling severe challenges of life. She was fearful, she was boisterous at times, but yet always a lady. I had the pleasure to know Debbie in a personal way for many years. She was my mom's cricket partner, both committed to the game and proud West Indians, and both proud former students of the Bishop's High School, and both enjoying long hours in the Ladies' Pavilion at Border. All too soon, Debbie was gone, and here we are. May we all remember to put Guyana first as she did, to laugh at
often be respectful of each other in times of hostility, as she would have wanted us to do. We will always hold her in our hearts. Our sympathy to her family and close friends on this immense loss. Thank you.
Thank you most kindly. I now invite the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Brigadier Retired David Granger, to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion moved by my colleague, Ms. Amna Ali, calling on this honorable House to express deep regret on the death of Mrs. Deborah Jan Osman Bakker, former Deputy Speaker and member of the National Assembly, who died on the 21st of March. Deborah Bakker was the Guyanese woman who came closest to being appointed the first woman senior counsel in the legal profession and the first woman speaker of this National Assembly. The first accolade eluded her because in this strange jurisdiction, which after 48 years of national independence, and having earned the enviable international esteem for producing eminent chief justices, jurists, and legal luminaries serving in several other states, bestows silk infrequently and inconsistently. The second, the promise of which was perceived to be possible under the new dispensation afforded in this 10th Parliament, could not be accomplished for reasons we well know. Deborah Bakker's professional life started after her graduation from the University of the West Indies and the Hewling Law Schools in 1983. She did so along with the current Chancellor of the Judiciary, Justice Carl Singh, and the current Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Basil Williams, among others. She accumulated enormous experience as an attorney at law for over 30 years, not as a money grubber or a pettifogger, but doing much quiet pro bono work for the vulnerable women and children and for victims of injustice. Deborah, along with Justice Desiree Bernard, who was then a puny judge, and along with other female attorneys at law, Mrs. Sheila Chapman, L.V. Edwards, Carol James Boston, Pearline Roach, Bernie Stevenson, and Josephine Whitehead, founded the Guyana Association of Women's Lawyers in April 1987. Deborah helped to formulate and propagate its mission to provide legal advice and assistance to women in society and to promote women's rights and issues, especially as they pertain to property rights and violence against women. Deborah's public life was an extension of her professional life. She's a founding member of the Board of Directors of the Linden Legal Aid Center, which was established 5 years ago in April 2009 to support abused and exploited children in that town. The center aimed at providing legal representation and assistance to women and children who were victims of domestic and sexual violence. It provided legal advice and representation in civil matters and criminal matters in which adequate legal representation could not make a material difference or would make a material difference to the prospects of an accused person receiving a fair trial. Her leadership in the Guyana Society for the Blind, the International Association of Lions Clubs also, were expressions of the value she placed on the human condition. Deborah's attendance on conflict resolution and mediator skills courses introduced her to the practice of alternative dispute resolution. These courses had the effect of modifying the adversarial approach to advocacy and of successfully shifting numerous cases, as the Attorney General just mentioned, from the fierce litigation of the courtroom to measured mediation, in which she excelled. She came to be recognized as one of the most successful mediators in the country. Deborah's political service ended within this hallowed hall, the hall of the National Assembly. But it had started 20 years ago along the Avenue of the Republic in another hallowed hall, that of the Georgetown City Council, whereto she won a seat in the last known democratic municipal and local government elections in 1994. She entered national politics and became a member of the National Assembly after winning a seat in the 1997 general and regional elections. And she remained a member through the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th Parliament until her resignation in February 2014, forced by ill health. An articulate debater, she served on several parliamentary committees, as my colleague Amna just mentioned, and was elected Deputy Speaker in January 2012. Her sponsorship of the Married Persons Property Amendment Bill and motions on interpersonal violence and law reform in the National Assembly are much more evidential in her humane outlook of life, on life. Politics is not an exact science, and her views were not colored by any conventional or rigid dogma or ideological doctrine. Her political beliefs were based on principle, not expediency. She served as a member of the Central Executive Committee, as Assistant General Secretary and Chairperson of the Constitution Review Committee of the People's National Congress Reform. Deborah's personal life was the wellspring of her values and her worldview. Her life was steeped in the values of her mother's family, which was well established over a century and a quarter ago. She was the great-grandchild of William Owen, a schoolmaster. She was the grandchild of John Edward Owen, originally from Stewartville Village on the west coast of Demerara, who himself was a head teacher of St. Stephen's Scout School, a county inspector of schools, and an ordained elder of what was then known as the Church of England, Church of Scotland, sorry. What a mistake. She herself was the third daughter of Sheikh Mohammed Usman from Alboyston and his wife Barbara, née Owen, from Kingston. And she sensed the signification of miscegenation and socialization in colonial Georgetown's geography. The two wards, Alboyston and Kingston, were located at opposite ends of the city, and at that time were regarded as domiciles of different social classes. She saw the circumstances of her birth and upbringing as assets, which gave her the best of both worlds. She saw fusion, where others might see confusion, and she is a comfortable woman in the skin that she inherited from both her father and her mother. Her values rested on the secure foundation of the home, the school, and the church. Her closest relatives worked mainly in the public service, which at that time was regarded as a respectable but not rich vocation. The Bishop's High School was considered the best girls' school of the day. Her septennium there, which her mother and her sisters attended before, and which her children, Nigel and Natasha, attended after, and her worship at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church next door, came naturally to her. They were all a family tradition, facets of one worldview. Mr. Speaker, these conditions and circumstances, Deborah's family lineage, her residence, her attendance at Bishop's High School, her worship at the Presbyterian Church influenced her deeply. These were the tenets the verities, the values which she took into her personal life and in her relations with others. Deborah's life, in all of its professional, personal, political, and public aspects, were an inspiration to those who knew her. We shall miss her deeply in our party. We shall miss her in the shadow cabinet. And we shall miss her in this National Assembly. I therefore call on this Honorable House to support this motion to express deep regret on the death of Mrs. Deborah John Osmond Backer, former Deputy Speaker and member of this National Assembly, to pay tribute to her dedicated service to the Parliament of Guyana, to convey sympathy to her sorrowing widower, Stephen, her children, Nigel and Natasha, her siblings, Dawn and Denise, and to all of her relatives. I thank you.
Thank you, honourable members. I invite Ms. Andali to close the debate.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in wrapping up, I just would like to express thanks to all the contributors who spoke on this motion, Mr. Langeland, Mrs. Hughes, Mr. Granger. And to move, sir, that that we all agree and pass this motion recording our sympathy on the death of our former Deputy Speaker, Mrs. Deborah Backer, and to express our condolences to her sorrowing widower, children, and relatives. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable members. I will now put the motion. Before I do so, I just wish to join in the sentiments expressed. And to say on behalf of the House, I did speak to the death, untimely death and tragic death of our comrade. And I would ask that my words also of sympathy be conveyed to the family. We know that the pain endures. And this House is not the same, and I dare say will never be the same from the absence of Mrs. Deborah Backer. She really was the life of this House. With those words said, I now put the motion, that is that we adopt the resolution that the National Assembly directs that an expression of its sympathy be conveyed to our sorrowing widower, children and relatives. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Thank you. I will ask that the clerk ensures that a copy of the motion, the presentations made, and the resolution adopted by this House be properly communicated to the family. Thank you. Honourable members, we will stand in suspension for 1 hour.